Alright, so following what we just saw is LeBlanc. I can main it comment for. We're going to change some things in Arcane to make the story more interesting. Placing Jason, Victor, OG, Mentor with them. Okay, I'll read the comments later.
And so, despite
hell is
everything
this?
being currently prepared on PvE, we need to go back to Legends of Runeterra, and we need to have a look at another set of cards, which reveal even more spicy lore. They may look innocent at first, but they all contribute to a really interesting storyline, and eventually we learn about something really cool at the end. So without further ado, let's have a look at the cards surrounding...
Bro, his arm is way too fucking big, bro. It's like makes him just look so fucking fat.
JARVAN IV.
Alright,
Let's start with JARVAN himself. That's where the storyline starts. The Noxians knew where Prince JARVAN's hunt would take him. They knew how many Demacians would be on his side.
One sec, be right back.
And they...
Sorry about that.
They knew that his honor wouldn't permit him to flee. The trap was set. A couple of interesting things to point out here. If you read JARVAN's bio, there you learn that JARVAN being captured by Noxians is essentially the main part of his lore. As Noxus started expanding their territory towards Demacia, Demacians started fighting back. Eventually, they were defeated at the Gates of Morning, which was crossing the line. And so, JARVAN IV decided to venture out and deal with the Noxians himself. But he was ambushed somewhere around Travail. This quote reveals that the Noxians knew exactly where JARVAN was and where he was going.
Okay.
That's why they were able to ambush him. And the reason why that likely happened is because LeBlanc likely infiltrated the Demacian military. In the Garen novel, we learned that one of Garen's relatives was possessed by LeBlanc. So having another spy there keeping an eye on JARVAN makes sense. The reason why I'm even bringing this up is because this becomes important.
Isn't LeBlanc like 1,000 years old at this point? She was there to capture Mordekaiser, right?
Later on. Regardless, even though this scene might have happened during a totally different encounter, it is highly likely that this happened when JARVAN was captured and later he was saved by Shyvana. But before we move on, if you have a look at the background, you may notice that JARVAN's private squad are not the Dauntless Vanguard, who are led by Garen. It seems like JARVAN has his own kind of elite warriors.
Okay.
You may notice that this King's Guard is wearing armor similar to his. And among them, there is a very special man. He does have his own card called the Honored Lord. But this is actually Lord Buvele, the adoptive father of Sona Buvele.
Oh, okay.
All we really know about him is that the Buvele family was powerful within the Demacian houses. And we know that his wife, who was likely the one who decided to adopt Sona, probably had some relation with magic, because she was aware of what Sona's instrument does and stuff like that. Anyway, the important part is that when you have a look at the tabard which Lord Buvele has, you may notice a weird owl griffin on it, which is a beast which we have not seen in Demacia before. And that's because this beast is likely referencing the shaggy beasts which Aurelian once mentioned. If you go to Aurelian's story, there, as he flew past Shurima and he went to the steppes to the north, he witnessed two armies fighting. On one side, there are people with stag skulls on pikes, and the other army, which was winning the fight, was riding shaggy beasts. This is really just a theory, but since we know that that battle happened around Demacia, I think the core Demacians might be descendants of those people. Maybe that's why they are still using this image on their banners to this day.
So come, like, the story's so fucking, like, mixed. It's crazy, man. This, like, it's like almost confusing at this point.
Has a really long history. Though, unfortunately, we don't learn more about this. It's just a really cool nod to a tiny detail which we learned from Aurelian. Anyway, let's keep going. JARVAN's leveled up version then continues the story. But the Noxians did fail to account for the young prince's sheer strength and uncompromising will. They paid for this miscalculation in blood. This is where I kinda believe that maybe this didn't happen during the storyline with Shyvana. Maybe this was a totally different ambush. Because, you know, JARVAN is supposed to lose the fight. But here it seems like he is actually going to slaughter everyone. Regardless, here's the thing. Looking at the Noxians behind him, these are members of the Trifarian Legion. They are not some random frontline berserkers. These are equal to Demasia's Dauntless Vanguard. Which means that they are here because someone from the top of Noxus told them.
Yeah, they know.
That's why it is likely
should be there.
this was orchestrated by LeBlanc. Especially if this happened during the times when Noxus was still ruled by Borem Darkwill. Because if this happened a bit later on, during the times when the Trifrakes was already a thing, that would mean that both Darius and Swain would also have to know about these being here, which would make it harder for LeBlanc to do anything unnoticed.
Yep.
Still, the point is, this was likely orchestrated by LeBlanc. And if this is happening during the story in JARVAN's bio, that means that JARVAN ultimately lost the fight, he was forced to retreat, he got hit by an arrow and he passed out in the forest. Then he was found by Shyvana and the entire Shyvana storyline happened.
Okay,
That's
fair enough.
the core of the story.
I hope the air was not the knee.
So, let's have a look at what happened in Demacia while JARVAN was away. Actually, super quickly before that, there is one unrelated card, and that is the Dragon CHOW. That shriek you hear from way up high, that's no bird, my boy. That's the cry of a hunting dragon. I have to say, I am pretty sure we have never seen these furry elephants before, especially around Demacia. So
Okay.
I quickly want to mention that this is a brand new animal which we have not seen before. And unless this is actually called the Dragon CHOW, I don't think we know its name yet. Anyway, on to JARVAN's story.
Dragon CHOW.
The first related card we got is a spell, Battlefield Prowess. I could teach you a thing or two, the quote of Lord Buvelay. This card doesn't reveal anything just yet, but
There's
at least
the-
we get a closer
yeah,
look
there you
into
go.
the bard. This is the shaggy beast I was talking about.
Uh-huh.
Then we need to go to the Honored Lord, which again is Lord Buvelay, because this is where the storyline starts. After learning of his son's disappearance, King JARVAN III tasks his trusted friend, Lord Barrett Buvelay, with organizing a search party. The prince returns safe and well. Lord Buvelay, to the king's eternal regret, did not.
Oh, so he died
After
there.
King JARVAN III learned that JARVAN disappeared, Lord Buvelay gathered the soldiers and they started looking for JARVAN III. Here, remember that Lord Buvelay was sent out by King JARVAN himself. This will be important later on. But if you have a look behind Lord Buvelay, you may actually see the penitent squire. Only when she reached the city's walls did her legs finally give way. The Dauntless Vanguard would carry her message to the king, and the king would save the prince. Thus would her wrong be righted, and her honor preserved. Her honor being preserved is actually the key to this story. You see, the Demacian Code bids all soldiers to stand with their comrades. No matter the circumstances, they have to fight united. But here it is obvious that Lord Buvelay sent this person away to carry out a message to continue the search. What Lord Buvelay was doing here is essentially holding the Noxians back.
Why does the squire have such a massive pendant, though?
To buy time for the soldier to deliver the message. Even though honor commanded her to stay with him. But as is obvious from the other card, she did obey the orders. And against the Demacian honor, she left the battlefield and she ran back towards the capital city. There she arrived with the King's Guard banner as a proof of what happened. By the way, this also means that this first image which we got for JARVAN
It's older.
did not happen during this storyline.
Yeah.
Because from the Honored Lord, we learned that Lord Buvelay was sent after JARVAN, but he never returned while JARVAN did. So during all the searching, the two likely didn't even find each other. Anyway, before we move on from the Penitent Squire, I quickly want to mention that if you have a look at the banner, I am pretty sure those are hidden runes. They look really similar to Rise's writing. Although this could be just what the Demacian writing looks like. All we know is what the Noxian writing looks like. We
Yeah,
don't
fair
know
enough.
about any other region. So maybe this is actually the Demacian language. Anyway, moving on. There is also an image from when the search party was first put together. This is what it looked like when everyone was alerted about the situation. So this most likely happened before all the other cards. But there is the chance that after the Penitent Squire delivered the message to the capital city, she then returned to the battlefield and started helping the others. That's also an option, though it is not important for this story. The description simply says, once the call was made, every Demacian soldier was summoned to aid in search for the prince. Expediency, more than anything, was key.
Okay.
Then there is a quick spell called the Golden Ages, which honestly might be just a flavor card, because it is giving people barrier in-game, but this may be referencing the fact that JARVAN doesn't really mind using magic. Though, if this card is actually representing magic, we don't know what kind. So, because it is so unclear, I don't really want to...
Honestly, it looks like Kale's bubble, therefore it's like borrowing Kale's power again, kind of like how Garen's R works, but...
I'll dive deeper into this. Instead, next there is the Towering Stonehorn. The Great Stonehorns are reputed to have come from the time when the petrified forest was young, their spreading antlers made of materials similar to those now ancient trees. And this is why I mentioned the shaggy beasts with Lord Beauvolet at the very beginning. It's because the other army, which was losing, was using stags for their icons. And since this reveals how important stags really are for the Demacian culture, I think these beasts were related to that ancient war, which happened around the Demacian territory.
Maybe these nuts too.
Somehow that's not the case. It's just really cool to see that Demacia also has mythical beasts. But finally, this takes us to the peak of this story. The card for King JARVAN III.
And here's the Squire.
Here we can see that the Penitent Squire did bring the king the message herself. But this is also where the storyline gets kinda wonky. Because this makes it feel like the search party started only because the Penitent Squire brought in the message. But that's not the case. Because the Penitent Squire is here because of Lord Beauvolet. And Lord Beauvolet was called in to find Prince JARVAN after the king learned about his son's disappearance.
Yeah.
So the storyline most likely went like this. The king learned about his son's disappearance, the Demacians formed up, Lord Beauvolet was in charge of that search party, unfortunately he himself was losing a battle, and so he sent a message of him being in a pickle back to the capital city. The battlefield prowess then shows Lord Beauvolet fighting against the Noxians alone. But then the Penitent Squire arrived in the capital city, and she brought the king a message of Lord Beauvolet's death. Or rather, about him fighting the Noxians alone. Hang on a second, this is me from the future. So, because there were so many iterations of how this story happened, I went through all the quotes of all the cards to see if this changes anything. And wouldn't you know, yes it does. From the quotes we learned a couple of interesting things. We learned that the family's name is not pronounced Beauvolet, it is Beauvel.
Which makes more sense, yeah.
That the Penitent Squire did actually bring King JARVAN the message that his son was lost.
My king, the prince is taken.
What? Guards, to arms!
Okay.
And we learned that JARVAN IV was saved by the Demacian soldiers.
You are safe. Thank the protector.
Okay.
Thank your soldiers, father.
Which means that all of this happened in its own separate story, and it is not part of the story with Shyvana. Also, there is a quote of JARVAN fighting himself, which references an old Journals of Justice story where LeBlanc was mimicking people.
Yeah.
Guards, arrest this impostor!
Anyway, with all of that info, here is how the most likely version of this story
Now this has to happen during the time of the rebellion.
went. It all actually started with the Penitent Squire. This person was with JARVAN when he got ambushed, but she probably obeyed JARVAN's order, and she fled, which, especially if she was his squire, means that she broke her honor. That's why the description mentions fixing the wrongs. Then, after she brought the message to the king started the search party, and he named Lord Beauvel its leader. This is why next we can see the squire here with Lord Beauvel. It's because she is leading the soldiers to where JARVAN was captured. And it is only after that that they find JARVAN. And that's when we get this picture.
Okay.
Air quotes even mention the moment when they met.
Barrett, did my father send you?
He did indeed. I see you've made friends.
And after that, even though they had won, as was mentioned in the previous description, Lord Beauvel died. So that's most likely what happened here.
Okay.
Now, let's continue with the video.
Yeah. How does this relate to...
That's not even the biggest plot point of this entire story. That one actually comes from the description of the card. What, pray tell, would a father sacrifice to save his son? Better yet, what would a king? This is a quote from LeBlanc, which reveals something really awesome. First of all, this is a really cool nod to the old retcon story, where JARVAN was being manipulated by LeBlanc. Although that story was really cool, it is not canon anymore. That happened back in the days of the old Journals of Justice,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't even fit the modern story. But it is cool to see that Riot still decided to honor that old story, and they still gave LeBlanc an interaction with JARVAN. But the deeper you dive into this interaction, the cooler it gets. This confirmed that LeBlanc has infiltrated someone within the Demacian military, and from within she started a really cool chain of events.
Who is she talking to, though? Is she talking to the king?
From the Lux comic, we learned that King JARVAN III died during the Mage Rebellion.
Yes.
But he wasn't killed by anyone siding with Silas. He simply died mysteriously during the rebellion.
Yeah.
This is heavily teasing at the fact that he was killed by LeBlanc. But still, things get even cooler. You see, even though LeBlanc knew where Prince JARVAN was going and what he was doing, capturing him wasn't LeBlanc's main goal. LeBlanc simply used the Trifarian Legion to make Prince JARVAN retreat away from the Demacian territory.
Okay.
So it is because of LeBlanc that the entire search party was started. But then it was likely LeBlanc who manipulated King JARVAN into sending Lord Beauvalet out to find his son. So LeBlanc's goal the entire time was to remove Lord Beauvalet from the king's side. This would leave King JARVAN with only Xin Zhao as his personal guard. This is also likely why Lord Beauvalet died during the searching. It's because LeBlanc had another wave of elite soldiers waiting for him. So tying this back to the comic, because Lord Beauvalet was removed from the king, and because Xin Zhao was loyal to the king and he obeyed his every order, which meant that at his command he left his side, this left King JARVAN alone during Silas's rebellion, which gave LeBlanc a perfect opportunity to assassinate him. And the reason why all of this happened, so that she could kill King JARVAN, was that JARVAN IV would go insane and he would start a civil war with the mages inside Demacia. So if you connect this massive line of dots, you get a very cool story. LeBlanc made JARVAN IV get lost in the forests. This made the king start searching for him. He sent Lord Beauvalet out. LeBlanc then killed Lord Beauvalet, which left the king alone, so that LeBlanc could kill the king as well, during the times when Demacia was at the brink of a civil war, to actually start a civil war. So theoretically...
it was pretty much already in a civil war. It wasn't like a brink of civil war if, like, people are actually, like, attacking the castle. And let's be real, even if LeBlanc didn't kill the king, Silas probably would have ended up killing the king.
It is absolutely possible that all the madness that is happening in Demacia right now is because of LeBlanc. But here I need to mention that none of this was confirmed. All of this is still
speculation.
a theory based on some really cool teasers. And especially with all the info we got from the book about Garen, where LeBlanc played a big part infiltrating Demacia. I think that's what happened in these cards, because it is complementing the current stories really well. But that is just my opinion. If you have another theory, or
interesting,
something that I missed, feel absolutely free to let me know in the comments. These cards usually start some really cool discussions. Lastly, to end this video, I need to mention that the reason why King JARVAN III looks different here than what he looked like before.
Well, it's also like 20 years.
His armor to his son.
Yeah.
That's why he is wearing a different kind of armor here. It's because his family heirloom was already passed on. Also, if you have a look at the banner at the back again, it's kind of the same runes as before. So this may just be the Demacian language.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but doesn't mean that the Demacian language isn't originated from the rune language.
For the Demacian cards. As I mentioned, they look innocent at first, but the story revealed with these is actually really awesome. Unfortunately, now we only have LeBlanc left in the cards, and somehow she reveals less in her own cards than she did here. So if you guys want to hear about it, I am willing to cover LeBlanc
like a true trickster.
But if not, we got some other stories to cover. And I especially need to get ready for what is going to come out of PBE.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Okay, so So J4 ambushed. Okay. How is the king notified though? King notified somehow. Sends Sona's dad. Oh, I forgot his name already. Barrel. Barrett. Bavel. Sends Sona's dad. Okay. Sona's dad ambushed. Well, actually, no. Sona's dad rescues J4. What happens then, though? So J4 is safe right now, right? So is J4 going back home? And Sona's dad stayed behind to clean the mess. Then Sona's dad sends SQUIRE away to tell that he died. Wait, no, but then, okay, Sona's king notified, sends Sona's dad plus search part. Yeah. And Sona's dad dies, sends SQUIRE away to... Sends the SQUIRE away. Is that pretty much it? Then this all happens during the civil war with Silas. At which point King J3 sends Zin away with letter. And then dies without his personal guard before Silas could reach him. Basically, kind of what happened. So that's like, you know. But this doesn't make sense because King had to know he was going to die. Because of how adamant he was about sending Zin away. So he knew he was gonna die. There's no way he didn't know he was gonna die. More like. Because, like, here's the thing. The sending the letter at that point to the head of the Mage Seekers would do absolutely nothing. He could have waited for the civil unrest to end, for the guards to secure the kingdom, and for like the, you know, the temperatures to go down, and then send the letter. He didn't have to do it at that moment. He knew he was gonna die, but why did he know he was gonna die? That's the interesting part. Yeah, anyways, that's enough for my speculation from the little knowledge that I have. That would be the end of this video, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.